second race of the weekend at the Silverstone International Circuit marked round 7 of the 2020 Dunlop Endurance Championship. Victory in the opening race went to championship frontrunners Danny Harrison and Jem Hepworth. Driving the VR Motorsport Fox Transport entered Praga, the pair recorded their 4th win of the season. But 2 of their closest title rivals also finished on the podium. Ben Dimmock and Steve Burgess claiming a Class 2 victory and 2nd place overall, with the SB Race Engineering Ferrari of Paul Bailey and Ross Wiley finishing 3rd. Class 3 honours had gone to the Bespoke Cars Racing Porsche of Marcus Fothergill and Dave Bennett, picking up the victory after the SG Racing 997 of Peter and Mark Cunningham had run out of fuel on the final lap. Meanwhile, the EDF Motorsport Seat of Ash Woodman and Martin Byford was victorious in Class 4. Also impressing in what is the most populated class on the grid were Aaron Morgan and Bobby Trundley. Following on from a maiden Class 4 podium and a Sunoco Driver of the Day award for Trundley on their debut at Brands Hatch, the pair had taken their Team Brit Aston Martin to 4th in class in the opening race here at Silverstone.
We had an excellent first race. During my stint, the first stint of the race, there was quite a few accidents which I had to avoid, but managed to bring the car in safely, putting in some great lap times in my stint. Then Bobby took over and made the best of the adverse conditions. There was a slight rain shower at the end and brought the car home in P4, which we're absolutely over the moon with.
Team Brit inspires people with disabilities and mental health issues through opportunities in motorsport. After suffering a motocross accident in 2006, Aaron is paraplegic, while teammate Bobby has autism. Both are united through their passion for motorsport.
For me, because I'm autistic, it helps my head. I mean, every time when I get behind the wheel of a car or something like that, even on a road, it's like my disability fades away and I can able to focus on the job in hand of driving, analysing, and that's how, some ways, I feel like I've got an advantage to anyone else. And it's just knowing that being behind the wheel is something I've always loved. I've loved ever since I've got in a kart, ever since I'm driving on a car and track. It's mega. I absolutely love it. So getting behind the wheel of a car, especially around Silverstone as well, bliss.
Since its initial incarnation as a kart racing squad, Team Brit has been involved in motorsport for 10 years now, not only providing invaluable help to numerous people with disabilities, but also developing into a very successful race team within its own right.
The whole team at Team Brit are fantastic. They keep the cars in tip-top shape, and the hand control technology, which obviously I personally need, is excellent. It's a fantastic car to drive. It's got so much power, the brakes on it are so good, and there's so much grip as well. It really is a joy to drive.
Team Brit are just making strides of opportunities for people who have disability, abled or physical or mental. They're just opening the playing field for motorsport.
Another driver competing in the category at Silverstone is the reigning Class 4 champion Tim Docker. But unfortunately, race 1 didn't go to plan for him.
We had a little bit of contact early on in the race on the exit from the complex to Hangar Straight. Damaged the car a little bit and spoiled the race for us really, and then ran a little bit wide coming into the complex this time towards the end and had a really big spin, so failed to finish, which isn't too frequent for me. I'm normally fairly consistent, and starting the second race at the back of the grid, so keep myself out of trouble hopefully in race 2 and just work my way through the field.
And so, with the results of race 1 setting the grid for race 2, it was Jem Hepworth on pole in the multicoloured VR Fox Transport Praga. Sharing the front row, Ben Dimmock aboard the black Raw Motorsports Radical as the rolling start roared into life and round 7 of the Dunlop Endurance Championship got underway. On the run into turn 1 at Abbey, Hepworth held the lead from Dimmock, with Paul Bailey's Ferrari 3rd and Gary Townsend's Praga 4th. The Seat of Martin Byford, the Ligier of Luke Davenport and the BMW of Tom Bradshaw all together for the Class 4 lead. Then on the run into Village Corner, Dimmock showed the nose of his Radical, a luck down the inside enough to alter Hepworth's line through the corner. She ran wide on the exit and Dimmock was through. On board the VW Golf of Tim Docker, hoping to make progress from last on the grid, following that very rare non-finish in the previous race. A couple of places gained, but a busy race still lay ahead. Back in the pits, Jonathan Evans will have been delighted with the start CRH teammates Tom Bradshaw had made. From 14th on the grid, the black and red BMW was straight up to 8th by the time he got to the first corner. At the end of lap 1, Dimmock had a 1.2 second lead, but with the Ferrari of reigning champion Paul Bailey now up to second place, having found a way past Hepworth down the Hanger Straight. Just behind her VR Motorsport stablemate Gary Townsend in the blue number 84 Praga. The Ferrari 488 had the edge on the straights, but the aerodynamic downforce of the Praga makes it hard to beat through high-speed turns. And with a better run through Abbey and Farm, Hepworth was able to grab second place back. In race 1, Will Powell and Dave Scaramanga had taken their Motor Swan Ginetta to second place in Class 4, but Powell had dropped back to 5th in class at the start of this race and was now battling with the CJJ Motorsport with Beluga Racing Porsche of Lorcan Hannafin. Up ahead, another Porsche ran wide, Dave Bennett's Class 3 machine. Picking up the Class 3 lead, therefore, another Porsche, the yellow and black SG Racing machine of Mark Cunningham. From 22nd on the grid, he was already up to 9th place. By the end of lap 3, Cunningham was up to 6th and catching the battle for 3rd place between the Praga of Townsend, the Ferrari of Bailey and the Class 4 leading BMW of Bradshaw. Having been overtaken by Townsend on the previous lap, Bailey now had his hands full to try and keep Bradshaw at bay. The pair ran nose to tail into Farm Curve and Bradshaw planned his move, staying across to get the inside line for Village, and as the door opened up, the BMW squeezed past the Ferrari. There was also a great 5-car battle brewing for 13th place, headed by the white Porsche of Dave Bennett. But he was under attack from Bobby Trundley and the Team Brit Aston went through. And just behind, the number 34 Porsche Shop 997 of Darryl Wilson and Ian Huard moved ahead of Peter Urseg for 15th, having progressed from 21st on the grid. On to lap 7 and Ben Dimmock's lead had now stretched to nearly 4 seconds. And there was a similar gap between the Pragas of Jem Hepworth in 2nd and Gary Townsend in 3rd. No breathing space though in the battle for 4th. Bailey was back ahead of Bradshaw, but they both had now been caught by Cunningham in the Porsche. Under braking into Abbey, the Porsche split the Ferrari and the BMW. Cunningham then started to inch up onto the Ferrari's rear wing. The three of them absolutely together as they hurtled towards Village, and Cunningham taking his chance to go down the inside. He'd now stormed from 22nd to 4th in less than 10 minutes. Meanwhile, Martin Byford was still busy trying to keep his EDF Motorsport Seat ahead of Will Powell in the Motor Swan Ginetta G55. The pair of them having to work hard to keep the Porsche Cayman of Lorcan Hannafin in sight. Teenage racer Hannafin was standing in for regular driver Sean Doyle. With the three of them bunching up through Village, Powell tried to dive down the inside of Byford going into the link. He drew alongside, but with the right-hander coming up next, Byford was always going to be the favourite to get there first, and, for the time being at least, the Seat stayed ahead. Battles were still raging in the midfield too. Peter Urseg outbraking Dave Bennett into Village to put the PB Racing Porsche up to 15th. Tim Docker now next in line to have a go. The Porsche scrambled clear exiting Village, but Bennett ran wide through the final part of the link and Docker was through. Coming up to the halfway point in the 60-minute race meant that the teams and drivers were now getting ready for the mandatory pit stop. Steve Burgess keeping an eye on live timing and delighted no doubt to see that his teammate Ben Dimmock had given the number 21 Radical a sizable 20-second lead. Behind him there had been a change for second, with Gary Townsend now the leading Praga ahead of Jem Hepworth. A teammate Danny Harrison now poised and ready to take over the wheel. The Ferrari had been the first of the leaders to pit, leaving Cunningham and Bradshaw to fight it out for 4th place. Class 4 leader Bradshaw finding a way back ahead of the Porsche as he neared the end of what had been a tremendous stint. Another great effort too by Luke Davenport in the Reflex Racing Ligier, second in Class 4 and now running 6th overall. 2018 champion Ross Wiley had now taken over the SB Race Engineering Ferrari from Paul Bailey, and the 488 was flying. Wiley the fastest driver on the circuit as he waited for his rivals to pit. Next in from the lead group was Jem Hepworth, another strong performance belying the fact that this was only her second weekend in a sports car. She'd given her teammate a strong platform to go out and secure a podium, but was the gap to the Radical too much to bridge? Further down the pit lane, the Mac G Racing Taranis was letting off some steam. The radiator cap had blown and would ultimately cost the team 8 laps. Also in the CJJ Beluga Porsche, Nicole Drought taking over from Lorcan Hannafin, who'd guided the Cayman to 3rd in Class 4. Impressive stuff from Hannafin, already making a name for himself as a frontrunner in this year's Porsche Carrera Cup GB. Yet to pit, Martin Byford had now picked up 3rd in Class 4, with Will Powell's Ginetta up to third in the category and enjoying a proper tussle with the Class 3 Porsche of Dave Bennett. Back at VR Motorsport, Danny Harrison headed back out in the number 85 Praga to try and hunt down the leaders. As the second half of the race wore on, things looked beautifully poised for a grandstand finish. Steve Burgess had now taken over the race-leading Raw Motorsports Radical, which if anything was now going even faster than it had at the start of the race. The trouble was, Danny Harrison was even quicker, and what had been a near 22-second lead heading into the pit stops had now been cut to just 9 seconds, with 10 minutes to go. This was going to be tight. So too was the battle for the final spot on the overall podium. Thanks to his excellent post-pit stop lap times, Ross Wiley had managed to get the Ferrari back up to third, but he was being pressed all the way by the Praga of Jack Fabi, who'd now taken over from Gary Townsend. 2 laps down in 4th place overall was the SG Racing Porsche, Peter Cunningham bringing the car home and dominating Class 3. Up to 5th place overall and now leading Class 4, the Reflex Racing Ligier of Marcus Vivian. DDF Motorsports Seat of Ash Woodman now up to 2nd in class, closely followed by the Simpsons Audi of Sasha Kakad and debutant Hugo Cook. And next up, 4th in class, was the Team Brit Aston Martin, with Aaron Morgan now behind the wheel. Former class leaders CRH had dropped to 5th, following the need for a long refuelling to ensure that the thirsty BMW of Jonathan Evans didn't have to make another late stop, as it had in race 1. The Veluga Porsche and the Motus One Ginetta had both dropped out of podium contention, and a late drive-through penalty consigned Tim Docker to a disappointing 8th in class. The real heartache, though, came from the VR Motorsport garage. Danny Harrison dramatically retiring from 2nd place, a potential win and a definite podium snatched away with just minutes to go. As it was, he might not have had time to catch the Radical anyway, timetable constraints bringing out the checkered flag 5 minutes early. Not that Steve Burgess cared, as he and Ben Dimmock took a well-deserved 2nd outright victory of the season. And having found a way past the Ferrari in the closing stages, Jack Fabi and Gary Townsend inherited 2nd place to keep their title hopes alive going into the final weekend of the season. Paul Bailey and Ross Wiley finished 3rd, with Class 3 honours going to the Cunninghams in 4th place, and Class 4 victory going to Luke Davenport and Marcus Vivian, who was given the Sunoco Driver of the Day award for his efforts.
Luke went out there and did an amazing first stint. He started well on slippery stuff and built up a nice lead. Got behind the wheel, it was very slippery. It was sort of wet around the back and dry at the front, but we got there in the end.
Britcar next heads to Snetterton for the final 2 races of the season, with the SB Race Engineering Ferrari and the 2 VR Motorsport Pragas all still close together in the battle for the championship crown.